Okay, let's dive into this. Welcome back to today's Explainer. We're going to be looking at something that honestly we all interact with every single day, often without even realizing the underlying machinery that's at work. We're talking about how media platforms, politicians, and public figures navigate today's highly controversial, constantly churning public discourse. I mean, in a world where literally every word is scrutinized and every second of our attention is monetized, how do the people shaping our news and our laws actually operate? To figure this out, we're going to look at three completely separate case studies from a recent broadcast analysis. Number one, broadcasting controversial debates. Number two, the politics of deflection. And finally, fueling the attention economy. All right, let's kick things off with part one, broadcasting controversial debates. So think about this for a second. What are the actual ethics behind what a national, taxpayer-funded broadcaster chooses to put on the air? Like, when does platforming a diverse range of opinions cross the line into amplifying harmful rhetoric? To illustrate this, our source material zeroes in on a debate that was recently published across the BBC's social platforms. And the topic? Whether 15-year-old girls should be allowed to get married. During this debate, arguments were actually presented suggesting that, hey, because puberty happens at different ages, stopping a 17-year-old from marrying makes no sense. One audience member literally argued, and I quote, "If she has enough sentience and self-awareness to choose her clothes, she can be married." Now, as commentators quickly pointed out, that is an incredibly controversial argument to just broadcast without some intense, serious scrutiny. And this brilliantly illustrates a massive, almost unbelievable legal and societal double standard that critics immediately jumped on. On one hand, you've got the UK government, and honestly, governments all over the place right now, actively debating an under-16 social media ban, right? They're fundamentally recognizing that people under 16 are children who require societal protection. But then, on the flip side, you simultaneously have the national broadcaster platforming a debate that treats those exact same teenagers as adults entirely capable of consenting to marriage. The analysts highlighted just how bizarre it is that society debates banning teenagers from Instagram while at the exact same time entertaining arguments that they are mature enough to be married off to older adults. Now, the core of the critique wasn't necessarily that the topic was completely off limits for discussion. The issue was the journalistic failure in how the whole thing was executed. Commentators leveled a few specific accusations at the BBC here. First up, a severe lack of academic pushback. There were absolutely no cultural studies experts or academics brought in to counter these claims. Second, by airing it without that pushback, the broadcaster was accused of legitimizing nonsensical arguments, like equating picking out an outfit for the day to consenting to a lifelong marriage. Third, critics felt the whole format treated the debate as a love-in, basically a casual chat rather than a rigorous interrogation of a very serious human rights issue. So, the overall consensus? The broadcaster totally failed to provide the intelligent framing required for a topic this sensitive. To drive home what the BBC should have done instead, the commentators pointed to a real gold standard, Geraldine Brooks' nonfiction book, 9 Parts of Desire. Brooks is an Australian journalist who spent years actually embedded in Arab countries, meticulously telling the stories of women with deep authenticity, proper context, and rigorous journalistic framing. And critics argued that this right here is the exact type of well-framed, deeply investigated journalism a national broadcaster should be funding, not some superficial, unmoderated debate that just fails to poke holes in really bad arguments. But while broadcasters are navigating what topics they choose to air, how do politicians navigate the topics they desperately want to avoid? Which brings us to Section 2, the politics of deflection. All right, let's set the scene. We are at a Labour Party national conference presser. Housing Minister Clare O'Neil is up at the microphone. A reporter named Nat presses her with a highly direct, super simple question. Yes or no on changing the Union Jack? He wasn't asking for some deep philosophical thesis here. He literally just wanted a simple yes or no on whether the government was looking to alter the Australian flag. But instead of just giving a direct answer, O'Neil completely deflected. Her response? As housing minister, I don't spend my time thinking about the national flag. She just repeatedly dodged the question, insisting she hadn't given it a second thought, and that her entire focus was on housing issues and the things everyday Australians are talking about around the kitchen table. And even when the reporter pointed out that the flag debate was quite literally the biggest story of the day in the papers, she absolutely refused to provide a simple, no, we are not changing the flag. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the strategic, behind-the-scenes political dilemma driving that awkward deflection. Like, why dodge such an incredibly simple question? Well, the commentators analyze this as a classic factional survival tactic. Think about it. On the left, you have a faction of voters who view the Union Jack with negative historical connotations, right? So if O'Neil comes out fiercely defending the flag, she alienates them. But on the right, you have this traditional, highly patriotic working-class base. If she even hints at changing the flag, she alienates them. So her calculated move was to play word games, essentially cross her fingers, and hope that by saying absolutely nothing, she appeases everyone. But you have to ask yourself, does that actually work for the everyday voter watching at home? The source material contrasts O'Neil's approach with another politician, Bridget McKenzie. When McKenzie was asked the exact same type of question, she simply gave one clear, straightforward defense of the current system. Commentators felt that O'Neil's word games and dancing around the issue ultimately just made her look unprepared and evasive, which naturally leads voters to wonder if there's some sort of hidden agenda. Meanwhile, McKenzie's straightforward no was viewed as politically much smarter. It turns out sometimes just giving an honest, direct answer is way better than getting yourself caught up in the messy machinery of political deflection. And that perfectly tees up our final section, number 3, fueling the attention economy. Let's zoom out a bit and see how this all builds into the broader ecosystem we live in. We're pivoting from the calculated dodging of politicians to the relentless, absolutely unavoidable pressure of modern paparazzi journalism. Our source material highlights some intense footage of Channel 9 journalist Karl Stefanovic being hounded on the street by paparazzi. If you break down the tactics of the person holding the camera, it operates on a very specific, aggressive timeline. Step 1. They ask a provocative question about a controversial podcast Stefanovic is allegedly doing with Ben Roberts-Smith. Step 2. They leave absolutely zero pause for him to actually answer. Step 3. They immediately fire the next provocative question. As the commentators astutely pointed out, the goal of this interaction wasn't actually to gather information. The goal was purely to generate a reaction, to create friction on camera. But wait, here is the incredible layer of irony that the analysts pointed out. The paparazzi hounding Stefanovic, they were from the Sydney Morning Herald. The Sydney Morning Herald is a Nine Entertainment newspaper, and Karl Stefanovic is a prominent Nine Network journalist. This was literally a case of the media eating the media. You have a newspaper aggressively pursuing a journalist from its own parent company over his potential podcast guests and who he might be selling out. It is quite literally a closed loop of manufactured drama. So, the crucial point is this. Stefanovic is a journalist. He wants ratings. The paparazzi want clicks. They are giving him attention, and he is generating content for them in return. This right here is the absolute definition of the attention economy. It's an ecosystem where visibility, controversy, and constant media pursuit are utilized primarily to drive up ratings and engagement. Whether it's a broadcaster airing a shocking debate without pushback, a politician dancing around a simple question to avoid an outrage cycle, or media outlets cannibalizing their own for a viral street video, it is all fueled entirely by the desperate pursuit of our attention. Which leaves us with this final thought to consider as you go about your day and consume your daily news. Look closely at the tactics we've uncovered in this explainer. In the modern media landscape, are our broadcasters and politicians actually shaping public discourse with intent on integrity, or are they simply employing survival tactics, doing whatever it takes to stay afloat in the relentless, unforgiving attention economy? Keep an eye out for these patterns the next time you scroll your feed. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and I'll catch you on the next one.